There is a running gag that makes its way around the listening audience that I have here in Idaho. I host a radio program in the Magic Valley, which is the area you would probably say is southernmost along the Snake River Plain. Twin Falls, Idaho is a relatively small city of under 60,000, somewhere between 50 and 60. We'll get a good head count in a matter of, I guess, weeks when we get census data. But there's a running joke that I get among those people who call my program, and they pretty much say Idaho is full. That's because they feel that there are a lot of people who are moving here, who are coming here, and they will not, what's the best way to put this? They will not adhere to the current culture. They will make demands that the culture change for them. And there's certainly a track record for that happening in a great many places around the country. I lived in southern Delaware, which at one time had been very rural and now has more of a feel of a big suburb. And people who had been there for 50, 60 years didn't like all the changes that came when there was this huge influx of people who came in from New Jersey and Washington and Baltimore and Philadelphia and immediately said, well, hey, this is very pretty, but gee, this isn't the way it should run. This is the way we used to run it. I can remember I was out canvassing for a candidate one time, and a guy stopped me at his house, recognized who I was, and immediately started complaining about the streets in our downtown village area. And I thought they were very quaint. It reminded me of something straight out of the Andy Griffith Show. But for him, who had retired from the federal government in Washington, he had to complain about the fact that it looked, well, rural. The question then is, why did you move here, and why didn't you stay over in that mess where you came from? And people have said that the people coming to Idaho, new people coming to Idaho, are actually more conservative than native Idahoans, who are moderate Republicans to conservative Republicans to libertarian to some degree. We're told that the newcomers are much more libertarian or hardcore conservative. But the growth that we've seen around the Treasure Valley, and that's the area around Boise, the state capital, that has changed the demographic there. Boise is now a relatively liberal city. And even the county commission, which had long been under Republican hands, is now a two-thirds majority for Democrats. So for all of the talk about people coming here and actually making things redder, I'm not quite sure it's going to happen quite like that. So I understand the concerns that people have. Now, when I moved here, I've been all over the country. I've been here 5.5 years. This is still a relatively young state. The last place that I lived, there are people who are buried in cemeteries that are now 400 years old. I grew up in a part of the Northern Appalachian region, and while I am a native New York stater, people sometimes confuse that with a big city, which was about an 8-hour drive from where I grew up. My hometown was more dairy cows and maple syrup than anything else, with just 2 traffic lights. And at one time, the streets had been made from brick and not from asphalt. I had a relatively, what I would call, easy transition to the Idaho lifestyle. But we do wonder why so many people want to come here, because even though Texas may be getting more people than anywhere else moving from other states inbound, as a percentage, because Idaho has a low population, it's a good-sized state, but it has under 2 million people, roughly 1.8 likely when the census comes out. So the number of people coming here actually have made this, sometimes in the past 5 years, percentage-wise, per capita, the fastest-growing state in the union. Now, you may be wondering why, and I've been sharing with you some pictures from around the state. It is a wondrous place. People ask me about it in other parts of the country, and they have the impression that it's just one great big mountaintop, and that we're all sitting atop that peak 13,000 feet above sea level. But it's actually quite more interesting than that. When I first moved here, the spokesman for Idaho Fish and Game said to me one day, he said, Idaho is really 4 to 5 different states, all in one boundary. And one of our state senators told me one time, he said, Idaho is a state with 3 capitals. You've got Boise in the center, Spokane, Washington in the north near the Idaho Panhandle, and Salt Lake City, Utah, which is not too far to drive from where I currently am. If I got in the car here at the studios and I left, I would be in downtown Salt Lake City in about 3 hours. So it's not far to get there. It's not far to get to Jackson Hole, Wyoming. That's about 4 hours. Yellowstone, 3.5 to 4. If I wanted to go to Coeur d'Alene, though, that would be 8 to 9 hours driving. And to shorten that trip, I'd probably have to drive out of state, whether it be into Washington State for a stretch or through Missoula, Montana, and then come in from the eastbound side westward into Coeur d'Alene on Interstate 90, which runs from coast to coast but cuts through the northern panhandle of Idaho. But the scenery here is absolutely breathtaking. Here where I live in south central Idaho, best way to describe that, Magic Valley, it gets the name Magic Valley because it was all high desert. Nothing would grow here, and then people started irrigating it. And Twin Falls came along in about 1905 and was established. That was simply because the irrigation allowed things to grow. But it's mainly canyon lands and high waterfalls. Beautiful area in that sense. But if you get up into the panhandle of Idaho, it's not quite as mountainous, and it's more forest land. It resembles a lot of what I knew growing up in the Appalachian region, northern Appalachian region, that stretches into southwestern New York State. And over on the eastern side of the state, there's a lot of spots that are very mountainous near the Teton Range, as well as a lot of areas with grassland. And I've been up into an area called the Palouse. The Palouse is just nothing but rolling drumlins and grassland all around you. And I've often thought it would be great to go up there and just pitch a tent some starry night, and then take a sleeping bag outside and lay atop the sleeping bag and just look up at those stars in the sky. To me, that would be high living. Of course, you wouldn't do that. We're past Labor Day now. We probably wouldn't do that again until sometime in July. I just think, though, that the absolute stunning beauty of this place is still unknown to most people. The folks who move here are actually coming because, well, they hear the taxes are relatively low. It's when it comes to tax burden, it's, I think, number 7th lowest in the country. So that puts it in pretty good company when it comes to paying, a little bit less. And in some of those cases, when you get into the top 10, it's a few dollars separating these states one way or another. So it basically is the least taxed state in the country, which is strange because if you talk to people who live here about their property taxes, some people are going to have a stroke because they get so worked up about some of the increases they've seen. And there are so many people moving here. There is such a demand for housing that the price of homes has skyrocketed. I recently looked up the home that I lived in from the time I came home from the hospital until I was just before my 8th birthday. And it's a beautiful old house, just under 2,000 square feet, 4 bedrooms, a couple of bathrooms, good-sized plot of land, and its value, according to what I looked at on a real estate website, is about $80,000. That's pretty cheap by today's standards, but if you were to go back to my hometown, you wouldn't really find anywhere to work. So the price is what they call location, location, location. That same house here, probably $350,000. I kid you not. And so that's been the issue. People coming here and not enough housing, and we have seen these skyrocketing costs when it comes to whether you buy or whether you rent. There's going to get to a point where people can no longer afford to live where they work, and then they're going to have to commute long distances, which is only going to be a greater expense when it comes to maintaining a car and paying for gasoline. So we're struggling. The growth here is fine in many ways. There are a lot of jobs. Our unemployment rate, even after the pandemic, we're back below, I think, 4%. About 3.5%, which is astounding when you consider what the country's gone through. But that said, it's still a rather rough go. If you're moving here, you may find that job. You may have to work 2 jobs, and they're plentiful in order to make expenses, but you're still not going to have a lot of wiggle room when it comes to housing. I just wanted to share some of those thoughts today. And Idahoans who are actually watching this, feel free to comment in the comment sections below. You can also, if you're seeing this for the first time, you can go up to the top of our page, and there's a subscribe button. We'd like you to hit that. That way you'll get alerts when we post new videos. We post videos, we do movie reviews, we do some alcoholic beverage reviews, not many, but a few. We do some reviews like the one I've just done, and there's a lot of political talk as well. My name is Bill Colley, and my partner in this venture is a guy by the name of Jake Smith. You would say that we are both conservatives when it comes to our views, especially on the radio. Jake, perhaps even more so than yours truly, which is a lot of people say is a pretty astounding thing. Anyway, we hope to see you on our respective radio shows too as well. I'm on vacation, though, most of this week. I'll actually be out looking at some of this scenery all over again because I can't get enough of it.